And blessed to be a part of your day. Coming up, Barb, Joe, and Joe. Hang on. We're going to get to your calls concerning the president and his statements concerning due process. Before that, we go to Dr. Ryan Anderson, Ph.D. Dr. Anderson, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be with you.
When Harry became Sally, the journey of a transgender, a lot of folks wonder why this is such a big issue. What's the process, sir? How have we become a nation where, 5 years ago no one mentioned it, and now we're seeing them all over the place?
Partly because we've seen a lot of political activism. One of the things that I kind of document in my book, When Harry Became Sally, is that the LGBT activists, after they won the redefinition of marriage at the Supreme Court, they pivoted from the LGB part of the acronym to the T part of the acronym. So most Americans haven't even had time to think about what transgender identities are, what transgender medicine does to the human body, especially for children with puberty-blocking drugs, with giving testosterone to high school girls, and that we really need to slow down, hit the pause button, and think about what's happening right now, especially to our children.
Well, let's hit it. Many people think that this is the wave of the future, and we should all accept it. Your thoughts?
We will look back on this as a moment that one day will pass, because there are human costs to getting human nature wrong. And the reality here with the human body is that sex isn't assigned to us at birth, and as a result, modern medicine can't reassign sex. And for people who attempt to live as if the opposite sex, they find many struggles in life because it proves to be rather difficult to try to live as if something that you are not. So a much better therapeutic approach, and Chapter 6 of the book just goes through case study after case study, involves talking with people to see what it is that they find discomforting about their bodily identity, what it is they find attractive about the opposite sex's identity, and how we can help them feel comfortable in their own body.
Well, it seems easier said than done, but what do you say to parents that want their kids to have special bathrooms, or today, as you say in your book, Harry wants to be Sally?
What you want to suggest is that the science shows that 80 to 95% of children who suffer from gender dysphoria naturally grow out of it. They naturally resolve their identity with their body. They reconnect their identity with their body if they're given the time and the space to continue development. But we have no idea what will happen to children when they're encouraged to socially transition at age 5, to block puberty at age 10, and then be given the opposite sex's sex hormones at age 15. This is entirely experimental. It's profoundly radical in how we're treating the bodies of young people. And what we should do is talk with these children to find out what it is that makes them uncomfortable in their own bodies and how we can help them to feel comfortable.
Well, I mean, of course, we're taught that, we should be accepting. And I got to tell you, Dr. Anderson, I go to, these highfalutin places. Usually it's a drugstore or a fast food place. And I usually call everybody brother. And I don't mean to be offensive to people, but I'll go to somebody, hey, brother. And all of a sudden, I saw somebody the other day, they had to make sure we knew that they weren't a brother. It said her, she on it. And I'm going, well, this guy's a dude, but he's identifying as a her or she. I find it all very confusing. Your thoughts on that?
It can be confusing, especially when so much is changing so quickly, which is one reason why you think, why would someone take the time to actually write a book about these issues? It's because we need to do a better job of understanding what's going on, a better job of understanding what the activists are promoting, how people are choosing to live in accordance with the ideology that's coming from the activists, and therefore so we can do a better job of responding. Because what we need to avoid are two mistakes. On the one hand, there's the mistake of simply acquiescing and agreeing to whatever the activists on the left are demanding with respect to transgender ideology. The other mistake to avoid is simply rejecting and ostracizing and stigmatizing and belittling. We need to be able to speak the truth, but do it in a charitable way. We have to avoid both of those extremes of either acquiescing or rejecting. And that's what I try to do in the book here, is equip people so they can understand what's going on, and then they can respond truthfully and charitably.
A tough one, though, when you have someone that, again, young people, very impressionable. I mean, we have people in elementary school saying that they want to be, the opposite sex. I mean, let's face it, Dr. Anderson, we didn't know what was going on back then.
We still don't know what's going on when we're putting children on puberty-blocking drugs, or when we're putting girls on testosterone and boys on estrogen. The most important thing we can do here is to give children a safe environment in which they can continue the maturation process, in which we can talk to them so they can understand what it really means to be a boy or a girl, why they have nothing to fear from their bodily identity.
Dr. Anderson, anything else you'd like to share with us?
Simply to say, don't allow the activists on the left to shame you or silence you. Their most common technique on these debates is to call people who they disagree with names. Like say you're a bigot, you're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, whatever. We need to refuse to be silent. We have to know what the truth is. We have to speak up to defend the truth, and we have to do it in a charitable way.
And Dr. Anderson, When Harry Became Sally, where can we get that book?
You can get it wherever books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iBook, Kindle, all of the major book formats.
Well, thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning as we continue on, taking your calls about the issues that matter to you. Let's go back to the calls, and let's go to Joe in Meridian. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you today?
Well, sorry it took me so long to get to you, Joe.
That's okay. God keeps blessing me all the time, so no big deal. Hey, I wanted to talk to you about an offensive way to reduce gun violence and in general violence. And I kind of disagree with the president on offensive being defined as, having people armed. I think that's still a defensive strategy because you're coming in after there's a problem, right? So the offensive way is to train our kids in what right and wrong is and to teach them to be servants of others, like the Bible talks about, and to really encourage them to live life in a way that's about others and the Lord instead of themselves. And I think when you look at people that do that, that allow the Lord to come in and impact them and be a blessing, if we can encourage people to go that route, we're being proactive. We're being people that are out there maybe altering or helping somebody pivot from a place of despair or, self-focus and anger or whatever it is to being a person for others. And, by the grace of God, I've had opportunities to help people, talk through and work out of, suicide issues and all kinds of different issues. I don't take credit for it, but that's just because God's, allowed me to be a person for others in some of those moments. And I really feel like we're missing the issue on this. The media and everyone gets us focused on whether we should or shouldn't have guns, and that's the only thing. But reality is we've got to raise our kids well, and we got to be people for others and model that for them instead of just letting the nanny state determine, who we're going to grow up to be and how we're going to support and encourage each other.
Well, that's easier said than done, especially when we have the nanny state wanting to take over everything.
That's right. So we got to take control back ourselves and solve some of our own problems is kind of what I'm thinking, Kevin. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree with you, but, I get concerned, and for people just tuning in, this is a no-brainer what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Well, apparently the computer's having a rough day, but what I'm saying, there we go.
Or might take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system, because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms. They saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
Yeah, that would work. That would work.
No, that's not going to work, Kevin. I agree with you on that. There's no way that's not. And the guy that talked about the Constitution being somewhat flexible and things like this and talking about how you can slander people's off his rocker because he's talking about two different kinds of laws. There's constitutional law and there's, civil court, things like that, kind of like with OJ, right? And so can't take people's guns away on an accusation. We're innocent until proven guilty, and I think we have to stand by that. Otherwise, it's a slippery slope.
I would agree. Joe, thank you for the call and for listening.
Yep.
All right. Barb in Sunny Slope, thanks for your patience. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Barb.
No problem. I'm sitting here listening to this. I'm Barb from Sunny Slope. Indeed, however, I'm down in Barb from Belize right now, but I am listening in.
You're in Belize?
I am in Belize right now, visiting my brother who lives here. Yes.
What's that like?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Yes, it really is. I mean, I don't know, the weather up there I'm hearing is horrible. I'm sitting here with this cool breeze overseeing the Caribbean, you know.
I'd be scared to be in Belize. I'd be scared to be in Belize.
Why?
Because I love America.
Well, yeah, it took a lot it's taken years for him to get me to come down here to visit him for 2 weeks, let me tell you. And I am indeed anxious to get back. I mean, there is that degree of insecurity. I would rather be home. Even before I left, I thought, I'll be happy when I get back. You know, it's beautiful today. It's a good day. But I do understand that, and I am in full agreement with you. I really am.
Well, look, we love the president, but let's be honest. If Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama had said this, we'd be up in arms.
We would be totally up in arms, and I'm still up in arms, even if it's Trump. Well, especially with it being Trump, I guess, because I didn't expect this out of him. I am totally appalled at this, and I am every time you play that, and every time I hear it again, I think, oh my gosh, we've got to do something dramatic. Can we do something about this? Mark, who called in and said, well, call on your neighbor, and we could have them take the guns and then have them evaluated. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we have swatting that goes on now. Could you see neighbors and conflict just in general in the neighborhood? And one neighbor calls in and says, oh, I think he's really unstable and I know he has guns. Would you go check that out?
Hold on. I think they do that now.
Oh, they probably do that now, yes. But now we would have the president kind of supporting that, saying, increase it.
What a great way to make sure you couldn't protect yourself.
That is really true. I was looking, and I know that the Florida shooting was appalling. But I was reading recently that 11 teens every day are killed due to cell phones because they're driving with them, talking. They don't have the experience driving. They're driving, talking. They're driving, texting. 11 a day. 2 days. In 2 days, we have more kids killed with cell phones than we do at that Florida shooting. Where is the outrage on this? The FBI came out with statistics. In 2016, we lost 1,604 people through knives, only 374 through rifles. So are we taking knives now? I have here, teens are involved in accidents, in auto accidents. They killed 4,689 people in 2016. 2,000 of them, almost 2,100, were teens that were killed. We don't have outrage over this. Is it just that black-looking gun that bothers people? Are you kidding me? And now Trump is wanting to, oh my gosh, I don't even have words for this. Does a letter-writing campaign to this guy do anything? Or is this kind of a done deal?
Indeed.
I will write. I don't know that it will do any good. But I am appalled that he said that. Just appalled, offended. I was very pro-Trump, and I am very, very upset at this point. I don't know if people like us can do something to influence him not doing some executive order, which will really screw up the world.
Barb, safe travels home from Belize.
I will travel safely. I'll give you a call when I get back. I'm sure I'll be listening whenever I can.
Well, thank you for listening to us in Belize.
I have to have my contact with the States, let me tell you. Got to have it.
Well, we love America here.
We do.
I don't think you'd catch me. I don't think you'd catch me in Belize.
Well, it's as I say, it took years to. My brother's been down here since 2001, off and on, and I took me years before I would come down to see him. I'll see you when you come to the States was my idea.
As it should be, Barb. I got to run. Thank you.
Right up. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. More of your calls next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. We roll.
Or might take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system. Because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms. They saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
There we have it. Your thoughts. Let's get to Tea Party Bob. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you today?
Shocked at what I heard from the president.
Well, I'm not shocked. You know, this is not a fait accompli. This is something he threw out there, probably in a heated moment of discussion with a bunch of people that he really doesn't care much about. And my good friend Terry, you know, he'd make a good soldier but a bad general. Trump's completed 65% of his promises. Does anybody really think he's going to throw this all away to take some guns? It's not going to happen. You know, when you think about what he did with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer about the DACA kids and how he says, hey, just give me anything and I'll sign it. Of course, when they brought it up there, nothing got signed. Do you really think he's going to do something like this? You have to be a complete idiot to think that. Yes, he says stupid things. So do all presidents. We've all heard them. We've heard them for years. As far as I'm concerned, nothing has really changed until it's put into some kind of effective law. And I don't see that happening. We are going to need some changes. We are going to have to take care of the mentally ill. Taking the guns is not the answer. Fixing the system and fixing society is the answer. That's about all I have to say, my friend. I hope you have a good day.
Well, before you go, though, aren't you concerned when the president says this?
No. I've heard it all. I don't care. I've got a guy here who completed 65%. I'm going to write that out.
Because we can do that with an executive order. I'm going to write the bump stock, essentially write it out. So you won't have to worry about bump stock. Shortly, that'll be gone.
I mean, he's just saying he's going to rule by decree.
Yeah, well, he knows that's not going to happen. Look, like I said, people say stupid things in the heat of debate. This is just one of them. I'm not concerned about it. It doesn't bother me one iota. I don't care what you play for me. This guy has done more in 1 year than any other president has in any 4. So I'm going to stick with him and see what happens. And Terry, you go your own way. You're as far to the right as you can get already. Thank you very much, Kevin. I hope you have a great day.
Good to talk to our great friend Tea Party Bob. Traffic and weather together, 827. And we continue on. Let's go to Mark in Eagle. Mark, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Okay, I'm a little confused here because I had one of my sons works the night shift, so he texts me that extrapolation, and it was from CNN. And I told him, first off, I texted him back, don't trust anything you hear from CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, or NBC. And you got to question even Fox, I hate to say it. But what it looks to me is, and this is the way the media is good at portraying this stuff, including the statesmen, they'll extrapolate a certain part of the story there and make it sound like they want to take everybody's guns away and find out if they're mentally capable of owning the gun. How are you interpreting what was said there, first off? I interpret it from what I hear there, without hearing the whole speech that he said there, that people like this lunatic, and I have to say this, whether it violates your Second Amendment right or not, and I'm a firm believer in Second Right Amendments, you don't let a lunatic go on and on who you know owns guns and has been in trouble that many times. I'm sorry, till he gets a mental checkup or she gets a mental checkup, continue to own a gun to eventually do something like this. I do believe that is That is something that needs to be done for anybody who has had repeated cases of the cops going to their door, have made threats, post stuff on Facebook, whatever. So I'm confused a little bit where you're coming from on this. How are you presenting this story?
I'm presenting it that, Mark, they might say you're a kook. They might say I'm a kook. And when the president says get rid of due process, I take it for what he's saying. I don't mess around
I
with
hate
that.
to say it in this
But wait
case,
a minute. No, wait a minute. You asked for my opinion.
Okay.
I'm giving
Sorry.
it to you. And if Barack Obama had said this, if Hillary Clinton had said this, I mean, you can't have a commander-in-chief saying get rid of due process.
Now, wait, there's a little bit of a difference in what Trump said, I think, and what Obama said if you recall, they wanted to go after veterans who came back from over in Afghanistan and Iraq. And they wanted to do take away their guns from people they thought were under mental stress. And even if they haven't had the cops come to their home, I think that's two different things, folks. So having what this kid has done over and over repeatedly, 39, 40 times visits, the FBI was even, I guess, checking on this kid. I mean, I think that's more than enough warning to get somebody over there to take away the guns and have this person mentally evaluated. I'm sorry, that's just common sense. You have veterans out there who Obama through his department, wanted to have the guns taken away from people who had the slight chance of maybe having a mental disorder from being over there, PSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, well, unless they had the cops, like I said, repeatedly, or they made threats on Facebook, no, you leave those people alone. Now, the bump stock issue.
Well, wait a minute, though. We're supposed to trust the same system that failed us and continues to fail us repeatedly.
Under Trump, that's one thing. Under Obama, no, sir.
Right, but then you look at the Obama changes when you go to the doctor and they ask you, hey, do you own a gun? Hey, have you been depressed? Hey, have you been angry? Hey, I mean, these are normal things that, here's the checklist.
I know what you're saying there, Kevin. We have a far-left psychiatric community out there who is bent to the left. I know that for sure. Counselors, a lot of these people are lefties, and they'll find any excuse to write you up as being mentally deranged or not capable of owning a firearm. So I know exactly where you're coming from. I guess there'd have to be a proper way of evaluating these people without those type of people with their political beliefs and backgrounds to check out and really do a proper checking on somebody before you take their guns away. The school teachers, I mean, this. I got a problem. I believe, school teachers should be armed if they choose to be armed. What do you do with a teacher that's forced to keep an arm in their? Where in the heck do they keep an armed weapon, a handgun, in their schoolroom? And when something like this goes down, I mean, where do you keep it where you don't have maybe somebody who is mentally deranged looking in the teacher's desk with a recess?
Right, you keep it on their person. Mark, I got to run. Thank you. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. And more of your calls next. Dan, Jim, Tom, and Joe first. John Decker joining us live from the White House exclusively on KIDO Talk Radio from Fox News Radio. So, John, the president had a little talk yesterday concerning guns and due process, and it's kept us busy for about 4.5 hours here this morning. How about you?
Yeah, no, I bet. Yesterday was quite the listening session. He's going to have another one in about less than an hour from now, and he's been doing these, of course, over the course of the past 2 weeks since that mass shooting in Parkland, Florida, South Florida. So yesterday's meeting with 17 lawmakers from both parties, the president proposing some ideas that he'd like to see in legislation that emerges from the House and the Senate. The president indicating that he would be in favor of a bill that raises the minimum age for purchasing one of these semi-automatic weapons from 18 to 21. The president also indicating that he's already directed the Justice Department to ban bump stocks, which of course enable a rifle to shoot hundreds of rounds a minute. So this is a work in progress, and these types of negotiations do not happen overnight, but I think that a lot of good came out of yesterday's meeting in the cabinet room.
Any pushback, considering the president seems to want to do this through executive order, at least the bump stocks?
I have not heard any pushback on that particular proposal the president put forward. I think that, members of both parties want to see bump stocks made illegal, done away with, and the president can simply do that through the power of the pen. it would be, I think, more fitting if it was done in a legislative sense. But the president wants to do this himself, and that's the reason why he told lawmakers not to waste a lot of time on that particular issue.
Anything else the president has on his agenda this week, considering the firearms issue continues to resonate nonstop?
Well, some personnel issues. Yesterday we heard word that the White House Communications Director, Hope Hicks, has submitted her resignation. So that means the president will need to hire a fifth White House Communications Director to serve under him. Hope served a very important role for the president, not only in that role as communications director, but also as a sounding board for the president. She was his longest-serving aide, I think arguably his most loyal and trusted advisor, and she will not be at his side anymore after she leaves the White House. So this is obviously something the president needs to focus on, that personnel issue, over the course of the next few weeks.
Indeed, it seems kind of odd. She testifies, and then all of a sudden she's gone.
I agree with you. The timing looks odd. And, she's a communications director. Her background is in PR, public relations, and I think she knows that what this looks like. This looks like this is an after effect of her 8 hours of testimony on Capitol Hill to the House Intelligence Committee. The White House insists that's not the case, but look, this could have been announced a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, but it was announced literally the day after she gave her sworn testimony.
John Decker, we always appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Have a great day.
All right, our great friend John Decker. Let's get back to the calls. And we go to Tom in Nampa with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Kevin. It's not often I call 3 times in 1 week, but this conversation really has been going on here pretty good.
You're getting to be quite the popular guy.
Well, when Trump indicates he'd do a due process, remember, Trump sometimes shoots from the lip. The same guy that said he would run into that school unarmed, which is kind of ridiculous. Nobody would do something like that. I don't think he would either. But I think the bump stock issue should be handled by Congress, because when the president starts doing things unilaterally like Obama did when he did by executive order, anybody who receives Social Security disability benefits that is handled by a payee rather than themselves, they automatically lose their Second Amendment rights. Now, not everybody, has a payee because they're nuts. A lot of people just can't handle their money.
Right, but then you do have some people saying, who takes care of your finances? Well, it might be my spouse. And then zap, there goes your Second Amendment rights. It's been happening, Tom, across the country, and you're the only person that has brought that out.
Well, I think it's wrong,
It is wrong.
I think you've got to be careful not to broadly define this. I think a couple of callers back said it quite well. When somebody has a record of showing rash instability like this guy did, then definitely you need to prohibit them from having a gun. But to broaden that definition to somebody with post-traumatic stress or something, I think is ridiculous. And, a caller earlier on said that all, rights are not absolute, and that is correct. The great Oliver Wendell Holmes on the Supreme Court once said, the right to free speech does not give you the right to stand up in a crowded theater and yell, fire. So I think the Second Amendment goes the same way. Otherwise, let's get rid of the law that stopped private sales of machine guns. Let everybody buy a missile. There has to be some restraint. Otherwise, you're going to have total anarchy, and in an atmosphere of total anarchy, everybody loses their right because it's usually followed by some form of dictatorship. So I don't think the liberals are deliberately wanting to see more schoolyard shootings. I think that's a ridiculous statement. Anybody makes something like that. I think we should, let good sense prevail. Let's not overreact like we did after 9/11 with some of the excesses of the Patriot Act. And let's sit down and legislators of both parties see what they can do to address this issue.
That's tough to do when the president says, I'm getting rid of bump stocks. That's the answer. And we're going to make sure the crazies don't get weapons without due process because, Tom, to some people, you're a crazy. To some people, I'm a crazy.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I think Trump should weigh his words better before he just shoots from the lip. Right now, I don't know what it is in Idaho, but in California, if you have a restraining order on you, and that might be for something totally nonviolent, they'll take your guns from you. And so you can just get in a spat with your neighbor and he decides to put a restraining order on you. Suddenly you've lost your guns. I don't think that's right.
Well,
I think
it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Some people don't want any legislation because I think it's a slippery slope, and I'm not in that camp. I think raising it to 21 for selling to purchase weapons and ammunition. What's wrong with that? We have.
Well,
you
then
can't buy alcohol if you're 21.
Well, then you know something. Why join the military then until you're 21?
Well, I would make an exemption on people in the military buying a firearm.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're ready to serve our country, why can't they buy a firearm? If we trust them to run the drones and the missiles and the getting on the range, why don't we trust them as young adults?
Well, not everybody that wants to join the military is accepted either. There's a lot of people that are rejected.
Right, but again, then let's just make it 21 for everything.
Well, how about the legal age to drink? It's 21.
Right.
And I think in the case of somebody that's in the military, they should lower it to 18.
All right, Tom, thank you for the call. Let's get to Jim in Meridian with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. I'm an NRA member. I support everything the president said in those clips you've run this morning. He's talking about Cruz and ways to stop Cruz. Cruz was diagnosed bipolar and was on psychotropic drugs for bipolar, so he should never have been allowed to buy any guns. And he's talking about the 39 investigations of him that went on when his guns were not taken from him, and they should have been taken from him. I agree, without due process, even temporary. Actually, the flaw in the law is that he should never have passed a background check for being diagnosed with bipolar and being on the very powerful psychotropic drugs for that. The Colorado shooter was on the same thing in Colorado Theater. So was the Sandy Hook shooter. So were about 2 pages of them. If you put in Google, do a search on psychotropic drugs and violence, you'll pull up about 2 pages of them, all of them, and none of them were PTSD, by the way, and none of them were going in for marriage counseling or some temporary depression. We're talking about all of these were diagnosed as bipolar or schizophrenic and were on psychotropic drugs for those conditions. And all of them could have been stopped, and that does not threaten my Second Amendment rights. And that's the way this should have been done long ago. There's no reason a person like Cruz should have been able to buy 7 rifles. Cruz should not even have been allowed a BB gun because he was a whole long record of trouble and violence and threats and antisocial behavior and a whole long record. That's not you and I having some marriage counseling. And as far as depression, I think depression is a natural human condition. I would never take drugs for depression. Maybe some people feel that they need to.
Hold on. But I totally agree with you, Jim, that depression is natural. And I think too many times you have to have treatment, you have to have this. What did we do before we had all these drugs? Well,
in the 1950s, Cruz would have been locked away in a mental institution at the time that he was diagnosed as bipolar and given these kind of powerful drugs. He would have been separated from society and definitely not in a school. No one like him was ever in a school. Now, that's what America did before. We separated them, but the Democrats ruined that. They destroyed it. They said that now, you've got to tolerate the nutcases like Cruz, so they medicate them and let them run loose in society. I mean, that is crazy. And they let him have guns. Isn't that crazy?
Jim, I agree with you. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it. And to Jim's point, though, the only thing that I disagree with is, we're doubling down. Well, the laws failed, so we're going to pass more laws. And we're going to restrict your rights and my rights. See, that's what I have an issue with. Let's go to Joe in Murphy with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Joe.
Morning, Kevin. How are you doing?
Fascinating conversation here. Talk radio at its best this morning.
Yes, it is. So I haven't heard anybody bring up the fact about the shooting in Arapahoe, Colorado on December the 15th, where the resource officer shot the kid that was going to shoot up the school, for one thing. And then the other thing is, have you heard of the program called the Promise Program?
No, what is it?
So a couple of your callers have mentioned that touched on it somewhat, but never brought up the name. It was brought up by the Obama administration in 2013 and put in effect in Chicago, where they didn't punish the criminals and kept them out of jail, and the idea was to kind of keep the black population down from going into jail, and they worked to deal with the sheriff's departments and the police departments, and DOJ would pay them money and pay the schools to keep people from being punished and put into jails. So yesterday on Sean Hannity, they had the Florida representative on, and he talked about they're doing an investigation on this money that was handed down from the DOJ to the school and to the sheriff's department to keep the criminals out of jail and punishing them. So I heard one of your callers also say that he didn't believe the liberals wanted these killings. I believe they do like this collateral damage when we have perfect examples of it with Fast and Furious. We got Benghazi, and then we got all this stuff that's going on with the Trump, with the Russian collusion, with the fake dossier, and the IRS, and all that. And they say the ends justify the means, and we all know that they're after our guns. So I got off the phone and talked to the NRA, and they're already doing an investigation on this too, and they believe that this has happened. So I just recently talked to them today about it, and they're getting their lawyers together on this particular subject. So that's what I've found out so far.
Well, we appreciate your investigative reporting, Joe.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for calling into KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to, Wolfpack Jerry, hang on. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's go to Wolfpack Jerry on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Wolfpack.
Good morning. I wanted to go at this from a little bit different direction from how people are analyzing it and how President Trump's analyzing it. I see the problem as being a case of studies about urbanization versus non-urbanized areas. I see the problem, and most of our problems we have in this country today are due to over-urbanization in this country. If you look at the gun problem specifically, you don't see these shootings occurring in little crossroads schools that we used to have out in the country. The people who are most gun savvy and also respect guns live in the country, in the rural areas of our country, those areas that you see red the day after a presidential election on the map, on the election results. We don't want red rights even such when it comes to the amendments. It's particularly the First and Second Amendment. The problem is a top-down problem, and instead of it's not a gun problem, it's a socialization problem and an urbanization economic problem that if President Trump would just stop and think, he can turn this right around to his need to go after these cities that are protecting criminals and outlaws. And the problem should not be the guns that are behind this. If you're a
Right.
kid that grows up in South Miami or somewhere like that, or Denver, Colorado, those,
Right, you should have guns. Good morning, Dave. All right, please be careful today. We do appreciate you listening. And, of course, tomorrow we'll continue on. We want to thank another outstanding show put together by our great friend Ray Amaya. And you, thank you for making, our morning such an integral part of yours and vice versa. We understand you have a lot of choices. We work very hard to make sure that you stay with us. So we appreciate it. We'll try to do better tomorrow. Good day. God bless. Keep the faith. And remember, Sean Hannity this afternoon beginning at 3.